Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on my sawmill. This is a Woodland Mills HM122, and what you see is what you get when you buy the stock machine. It's suitable for logs that are about 10 feet long. The actual bed allows me to cut logs that are 10'6", and the diameter of logs I can cut is up to 20 inches. Now for some of the projects I have coming up, I need logs that are a lot longer than that, and I got a truckload of logs coming that are up to 21 feet long. So obviously this is not gonna be sufficient to do that. So what I'm gonna do is extend the rails on these. And before I do that, I also have to move the machine. In the area that I'm working in, I found just from working here a little bit that it's just not set up the most efficient way for this property. I have some hills to deal with, and I got a ton of firewood back here that I need to get organized into one pile, and also pick through that pile to find if there's any decent wood in there. Now going forward, most of the wood I'll be cutting will be softwood, because that's what I want to use for timber framing and for log building. And most of all the wood I have back here is beech, maple, and there's some cherry and birch, but all kind of hard or semi-hard woods that aren't ideal for the timber framing, at least for this beginner timber framer. So like I said, the first order of business is to get the rails on this extended and move it at the same time, because as you can see here, I got this on some hemlock 8x8s, and the land falls away here and we're just not in a good spot. But anyway, I'm going to get my measurements done, and then we can start doing some metal work. Now, one thing I have to deal with is I have a bit of a stock of steel here, but I know I don't have any. I think this is 2.5-inch angle iron. It is 2.5 inch by 3/16 angle iron. I know I don't have any of that. So what we're probably going to do is, I know I have lots of heavy flat bar, so we're going to run flat bar, and then we'll have to stiff it in a particular way to make sure it can support the load and support the logs that we're going to drop onto it. I know I don't have any of these things either, so we're going to come up with a creative way to deal with that as well. I think what Woodland Mills did here is they started off with a 2.5-inch by 3/16 angle iron, and then they that's not this edge that you see here, nice and flat. That's not the edge that would come out of a mill. So they've obviously machined that down for a nice flat surface, because the other angle that's down here, it is still like the factory milled edge, and it's a bit of a rounded edge, where this one is nice and flat and square. I don't anticipate that I'm going to be milling the edge of the flat bar that we're going to use to extend this, so we'll just have to drop it down a little bit so to make sure that as the trolley is coming along, that it doesn't drop or have to jump up or anything like that, because that would obviously cause a ripple in the cut that you're doing. So I think I got all the measurements I need. I'm going to go up and survey my steel pile just to see what I have in there, how I can make this work. So we'll head over there now and get started at this. Well, another day has passed, and I think I've come up with a plan for what we're going to do to extend our rails. So here's the steel pile. We don't have any angle iron, but we do have a bunch of flat bar of various sizes, and we can use that to fabricate some new rails up. So let's get that steel taken over to the shop. So given the steel that I have, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 1/2 inch by 2 inch flat bar on its side like that. And then we're going to take a 3/8 by 1.5 inch flat bar like that. And then we're going to take a 1/4 inch flat bar like that. And then so the wheel will sit on top of that. Now the reason I have to put the 1/4 inch flat bar there is because 3/8 flat bar won't fit in the groove on the wheel. So we need that 1/4 inch there. And this will all just make it more stiff. If you look at it like this, this is the This is the flat bar here. Most of the weight is going straight down. So we need to make this kind of axis here very rigid. This one here, not so much. So I just have to cut my lengths of these and tack them all together and then weld them up. And that will be our start. I measured all the lengths of the pieces of steel that we're going to use, and the shortest one is 9 foot 9.5. So what we will do is we will cut all the other ones to the same length so we can make our rails and they're all nice and even. One thing I have to do first though is we got to get the rust off these things. So we'll set some horses up outside and put the wire wheel on them. Well, I got to go get the tractor to move the horses. The horses weigh about 150 pounds each. They're nice and sturdy as you can imagine. So we'll get that moving right now. Tractor face. So that's got the bulk of the rust off. Now given the texture on this, and it's been sitting outside for a bit, some of that rust is really into the steel. So in order to weld it together, we don't want to have any of that rust in there because we're going to be using a MIG welder, and that will contaminate the welds. So I'm going to take a grinder now and clean off the areas where we're going to weld, just to give us a little cleaner surface to weld to, so we don't get any slag intrusions, impurities. It just weakens the weld, and we don't want that. I've laid this line out here all the way down, you can see, with the tri-square. That's set for 3/16 of an inch off center, because our flat bar is 3/8 of an inch thick. So that'll put the center of the flat bar on the center of this flat bar. So that's going to go on there like that. So we're just using little welds because we need to be able to move it back and forth. And if you use a lot of weld on one side, it's going to cause that, like just say we welded this side too much, it's going to pull it over like that. So we just put a little bit on either side to try to minimize the twisting that's going to happen, because the heat will pull it all over the place. All right, now I'm going to go back and put a few more tacks on before we start, just to make sure everything's nice and firm before we start to weld it up solid. As soon as we start putting welds on like that, it's going to want to pull, so any kind of support that we can have it with our tacks and taking advantage of the strength in the steel, then that'll be that much better and make our job easier later. So we got them all welded up. They're pretty hot right now, but we'll give them some time and let them cool down before we weld our top piece on here. All right, we got my 5 pieces cut from my cross members. We're going to get everything sitting on the floor, and I know the floor is not level, but as long as it's all even relative to the other components in the extension, then we can make it work. So we'll get that moved to the floor and start laying things out. There we go. So it's all squared up, and I check it corner to corner. That makes sure that it's square. And the distance between the rails is exactly 26 inches, just like on the existing framework. It just occurred to me on the way over to get the tractor to pick up the track extensions that I need a place to put those track extensions. So I got to saw up a couple logs first to lay a bed down for the extension to go on. So we're going to cut some logs first. So there we go. These are level, not to each other, but I gotta build it up anyway for the rails to sit on. So I think we're gonna call it a day, and we'll get back at her tomorrow. Well, I took the opportunity off camera to get these bunks made, and the important part about these bunks is that they're exactly the same height above the rails as the existing equipment, because you need everything to line up, otherwise this will sit either high or low, and it'll lift the log high or low relative to the other end. And we want it to be, for the most part, flat across here, especially if we're flipping it around, because we may end up with a log that's I don't know what you call it, maybe like a 3D rhombus. But anyway, so there's only one thing left to do yet. I guess a couple things, but on that end, we need to drill some holes so we can bolt it onto the existing rails. And I'm not sure about this yet, but I also need to put a post up here, somewhere along here, so we can put the log against it. I'm not sure if it's necessary yet, but we'll see. I'm not going to do it till after we try it, and then we'll see what's going on. So that's all we're going to get done for today. It's raining out, so I don't want to be standing out there trying to fiddle around with that end. We'll get this painted up, we'll prime it, probably just leave it primed, and then get it out there and finish it up. Then we can get some logs going.